Hey guys, welcome back to a new video by Biology with Zhang. So today we are continuing with the IGCSE Biology, Chapter 8, Transport in Plants. This is for the syllabus 2023 to 2025 and 2026 to 2028. So for last chapter 6, which we learn is plant nutrition, we've learned about mostly the anatomy of the plant and what are the necessary processes like photosynthesis it has occurred that helps to make sure that it is producing their own food. So that is mostly what we have discussed about in chapter 6. But today in chapter 8, we will learn more like internally how does the plant actually work. It's tissues that help to transport their essential nutrients that have been made like after photosynthesis, and how do the products being transported around the body. That's where we're going to find out today. So we have 4 sub-chapters today, which is the first one is Xylem and Phloem, water uptake, transpiration, and lastly translocation. So first thing we'll go through is Xylem and Phloem. So this is the learning outcomes. You just need to know how to state the functions of it and identify in diagrams and images in position of the xylem and phloem. And then the extended only is that we need to relate the structure of the xylem to its function. So we will talk a little bit more of that later on. So firstly, we have xylem and phloem. So you have to remember that xylem and phloem, they are both transport vessels of the plant. So when we mention transport vessels, it reminds you of in humans, we have arteries, we have veins and capillaries. However, in plants, they do not have that. So they have the 2 vessels, which is xylem and phloem. So both of them, they are all known as tissues, okay? So xylem vessels, their function is to transport water and minerals from the roots to the stem and leaves. So it's also for support. Like xylem is very important for maintaining the mechanical support of the plant. So how do xylem actually transport their nutrients up is usually by one direction only. It means once it only goes up one time up like that, not going up and then going back down. No, so it's only just one direction. Phloem vessels, they transport food materials, mainly sucrose and amino acids made by the plant from photosynthesizing leaves to non-photosynthesizing regions in the roots and stems. So both xylem and phloem are arranged in a vascular bundle. So in chapter 6, we also know that the vascular bundle consists of xylem and phloem. This is found almost close to spongy mesophyll cell. So vascular bundle inside contains xylem and phloem. So this is how the vascular bundle will look like. It shows you the entire thing that consists both the xylem and the phloem is known as the vascular bundle. So let's talk about some of the adaptations and also how does xylem become such an effective vessel that maintain support for the plant. So we know that it transport water and mineral ions, and also it play for mechanical support. So what are the adaptations that really help them to get into this way? So firstly, they have thick walls with lignin. So lignin is a type of material that is basically dead already. It's really the dead cells that really fuse together with other lignins to form like some sort of a wall that is really strong. So whenever you see any words like lignin, okay, on some structures, so for example for this case would be the xylem, you always know that this structure is actually a dead structure. So therefore, when you know it's dead, therefore it has no cell contents. So it's basically empty in the inside. So the cells are joined from end to end with no cross walls to form a long continuous tube. So this is how it looks like. So it's a continuous. So this is just one section that's been cut. So there's more that it is also surrounded with. Okay, and then there's inside of the all the walls that is continuously built up towards the plant. Okay, so yeah, that is pretty much it. So now we have to identify in different diagrams and different parts of the plant, we must know the location of the xylem and the phloem. This is essential. So you must know how to identify which is the xylem and phloem only. So in this diagram, I've given you other labeling, so you just follow xylem and phloem only. Okay, so this is the roots. So how do you know that which one would be the xylem? So xylem for roots is very simple. Can you see an X? If you see an X, this means this is the xylem, okay? And lastly, we got the phloem. The phloem is the surrounding, okay, which is here, 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 here. These are all the phloem, all right? Next one is the stem. The stem is a little bit different. That's where a lot of people got confused, which is the phloem, which is xylem. One thing that I can tell you is that you need to remember that xylem is always on the inside. Is always on the inside, meaning outside located here is the phloem, inside is the xylem. And now you're asking me, why is xylem always on the inside for the stem? Because you know that xylem plays an important role in support. So support always is very important where it's really inside towards the center of the plant, and it has to be having a tube that support the entire structure of the plant. So that's why xylem is located inside, because you know that the lignin is so strong that it can make sure that the entire plant is well supported. Okay, for the leaf, it's a little bit different. It's the other way around. Okay, so for this case, you need to know that xylem is on the top. Okay, so for this exception, xylem is at the top. Okay, so rarely we would have questions that talk about which is the xylem in the leaf, because most of the time we know that in stems you can see that it's very similar to each other, so that's why a lot of people get confused. So yeah, for this case, this would be the xylem on the top this time and not the phloem. Okay. Next, we'll go to water uptake with chapter 8.2. This is the learning outcomes. We talk about more root hair cells and then the process of how water is being uptake into from the soil to the different cells in the plants. So, first of all, what is root hair cells? So we learned in chapter 1 that root hair cells are the form of specialized cells. Okay, so root hairs are single cell extensions of epidermis cell in the root. So their main function is to absorb water and minerals from the soil. Water is by osmosis and minerals is by active transport. So water enters the root hair cell by osmosis. We all know that because this is from chapter 3. Osmosis requires water molecules to move from higher water potential to lower water potential. So this happens because the soil water, which is the surrounding here, has higher water potential than the cytoplasm of the root hair cell. So when the outside of the soil water has higher water potential, what happens is that water will enter into the cytoplasm of the cell because it's by the flow of osmosis. Okay. So the root hair increases the surface area. So we don't just have one root hair cell, we have a lot of them. So what is the purpose of it? Again, to emphasize to you again, like from chapter 7, like human nutrition, it's very important that all of this increases the surface area. So the same reasoning takes place. Increasing the surface area increases the rate of absorption of the water by osmosis and the mineral ions by active transport. It's always like this, is where it is proportional. When you increase the surface area, you always increase something that helps to become more efficient. For this case, in the root hair cell, is the rate of absorption. Okay. Next one, water uptake. For how do the process of water being take place? So osmosis causes water to pass into the root hair cell through the root cortex and into the xylem vessels. So once the water gets into the xylem, it's carried up to the leaf. So it's always by this kind of process. So in the end, how do you what is the summary of the process where it's been going? It's from the root hair cell to the root cortex cell, the xylem, and then lastly the leaf mesophyll cell. Okay, so you have to remember this pathway. Generally, it's actually quite easy. always from root hair, then you can see root cortex, and then later on to the xylem, because xylem is the one that transport water and the mineral ions, and then only it reaches up to the mesophyll cell. Okay, so we have one investigation that checks for water movement in the plant, or maybe the way how is it being absorbed. So firstly, the pathway can be investigated by placing a plant, okay, or a celery into a jar or a beaker with a different kind of color of dye or maybe food coloring. So what happens is that if you put celery, right, you must of course cut a portion of it, a section out, so that you can soak it properly. So what is the outcome is that you can actually check where is this being absorbed. Like it's either in the xylem or it's in the phloem, because later on they will actually change the color of the celery. So let's see how it looks like. So in the end it will look like this. You can see that is where it locates, where's the transport vessels being located, and how is it being absorbed up into the plant. So this is actually the whole gist of this experiment, to check is xylem is actually the one that helps to transport, and how does it affect each of them. As you cut in different sections, you can definitely see that they have the same color. It means that water is constantly being absorbed and it moves up towards the plant. Now we enter transpiration, which is chapter 8.3. So transpiration is basically a process, together with translocation later on, is both a process that we have to know, and then we just basically need to know like how does water being evaporated from the leaves and what kind of conditions that this may occur. So they have a lot of this, and lastly we learn about wilting. Okay, so firstly we have to know that transpiration, this definition is a must to know, okay, and you must memorize this. So it's the loss of water vapor from the leaf, which evaporates from the surface of the mesophyll cell into the air spaces and diffuses out of the leaf through the stomata. So this one you have to know this. So water leaves the mesophyll cell into the air spaces created by an irregular shape of the spongy mesophyll cell. So what is it trying to tell you is that if you remember this graph, this image, okay, what they're trying to tell you is that water is going to move out, okay, by either by osmosis, okay, and then later on they will start to create the sort of water vapor, and all the accumulated water vapor will eventually leave out by diffusion. Then later on it evaporates from the surface of the leaf. So that's the whole gist. That basically means that this is transpiration in very simple terms. So you can see that is created by an irregular shape of the spongy mesophyll cell, and then it diffuses out of the stomata. So water vapor is lost because of the large internal surface area and also the interconnecting air spaces that helps to between the mesophyll cell and the size of the number of the stomata. So water will move upwards into the xylem. We know that in terms of a transpiration pool, because you have to imagine that inside the stem, right, this is the xylem, okay, and then water is constantly moving up, but you'll be wondering how does it make it pull upwards. So it's all by a process known as transpiration pull, which draws up a column of water. It creates some sort of force that helps to suck up the water by its continuous concentration gradient that is changing all the while in the leaf, which controls how much of water is going to move upwards. So at the same time, within this sort of column, right, we also have a lot of cohesion and adhesion of water molecules. So now you'll be asking me, what is cohesion and what is adhesion? So cohesion is always the cohesion between water molecule. When one water molecule sticks to another water molecule, this is known as cohesion. But if it's adhesion, is where the water molecule sticks onto the walls of the xylem, and that is known as adhesion. So that is just the main thing that you have to know. So all of this is held together by force of attraction between water molecules, and then also by the transpiration pool that helps to suck up the water to move upwards. Okay. So now we have finished transpiration. Now we talk about what can affect how much of transpiration is going to occur. So we have three different factors. One of them is temperature. So we have to always relate back. It's always temperature, humidity, and wind speed. This is something that you've seen in probably in physics you learn evaporation, so this is about the same thing. So temperature is where when the kinetic energy of the water increases, they will evaporate. This is of course something that we know, and it diffuses faster from the mesophyll cell and increasing the transpiration rate. It causes water molecules to move faster, so therefore it diffuses faster, because it's also one of the factors that also affects diffusion. Humidity is where low humidity increases the concentration gradient between the leaf and the atmosphere, hence increasing the transpiration rate. For humidity is against. So it's like you need to have low humidity for higher rate of transpiration. I put ROT. Okay. For wind speed, this is the same as temperature. Like when there's stronger wind, of course transpiration is going to be faster, because wind is going to be very strong. It's going to blow the molecules and move faster also at the same time, so it maintains a steep concentration gradient all the time. Okay. Now, the process of wilting is something that we've seen commonly in our life also. So why do wilting occur in plants? It's because when water loss exceeds water uptake, meaning that there's more water moving out than instead of water moving in. So this causes cell to become more flaccid. So flaccid, remember this term, is where it becomes hypotonic. Okay, so and tissues will become limp. So that's why you can see that eventually it goes moving down, and then it becomes very yes, what I mentioned, looks very limp kind of appearance. Okay, so that's basically wilting. Lastly, we'll go into translocation. So chapter 8.4. So mostly translocation for extended students only. So it's also a process, and this may need a little bit more understanding. Okay. So translocation is the movement of sucrose and amino acids in the phloem from sources to sink. So basically, from now you heard of this, right? Basically, transpiration is kind of friends with xylem, and then translocation is friends with phloem. So transport in the phloem goes in many different directions, so it's not in one direction. Okay, not in one direction. So it can be going into different directions depending on the needs of the plant. So depending on the stage of development of the plant and the time of the year. However, dissolved food is always transported from the source and to the sink. So what is the source? So by guessing the word using source, using common sense, is something that where you actually make that. Okay, is where it you produce from, like, after photosynthesis. Then we have from the sucrose, you have become the source because you are actually producing important nutrition, while the sink is where it is being stored, because it's always from something that you always produce. It's not going to be used all the time, so it's eventually going to be stored as a form of storage. So that's why the sink comes into place. Okay, so we mentioned that translocation can depend in direction through the years and also the time also. So years is one of the key things that controls which will become the source and which will become the sink, because in the spring is where that it's very abundant. Everything is going back to normal. From initially winter, we have no leaves and everything. So what happens is that whatever is being stored during the winter, whatever is being produced, the roots, which is the storage organ, and this becomes the source, they will actually start releasing all of the important nutrients to start growing the plant. So that is where the root will become the source and the leaves are becoming the sink. Take note of the spring, but in summer it becomes different, because summer is when there's enough sunlight. And what happens when there's enough sunlight? Photosynthesis can occur. So what happens is that the sucrose will now be produced in the leaf, and the leaf will become the source. And then eventually, when it prepares for autumn, it prepares for winter, then all of the producing source, like the sucrose, will now be stored into the roots. This is also for our next spring to occur. Okay, so you can see that this is basically the differences between the source and also the sink. So below is a picture of a girdle. I want to show you this because this has happened in exams before. So what does a girdle show? It shows that inside, this is the xylem, and this is the phloem. And you can see that the phloem is actually being separated. So how questions can ask is that how can the plant still receive its nutrient? So you have to mention that the xylem is still intact, where it's still transporting water and mineral ions because it's not being separated. However, the plant won't receive any sucrose and amino acids because the phloem has been separated. You can see it's being cut off already. So therefore, the phloem is unable to transport its necessary nutrients by moving upwards into the plants that they have to go. Okay, so that's basically the girdle. You will see this in paper 4. Okay, so any questions for this chapter? We have come to the end. For the next chapter will be chapter 9, transport in animals, which relates to the heart a lot. So if that case, thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Bye bye.